Welcome to the Ego versus EQ and You podcast, where we discuss the key aspects of emotional intelligence and ways to apply it in everyday living. Now let's work together to make common sense more common. Welcome back to the Ego versus EQ and You podcast. I'm Jen, and today we're going to kind of wrap up this series on ego versus EQ and the 8 traps that we can fall into. Let me first start with a quick recap on what emotional intelligence is. Emotional intelligence is a behavioral science. It has been documented for several decades now. There's a lot of research out there that documents the history of it and the validity of it. But basically, we're talking about 3 categories. The first one is recognizing yourself, high self-awareness, knowing things like your strengths, but also acknowledging your weaknesses, knowing your personality type or your communication style, knowing your moods and how your moods might be affecting you or why you're feeling the way you're feeling. The second part is reading others. So social awareness, plugging into nonverbals that people are sending in the way that they're reacting to what you're saying or doing, kind of reading the room, as they say. Lastly, it's responding appropriately for that situation or person that you're with. So the goal is that I have a competency called emotional intelligence, which is a collection of skills that I'm comfortable to use those skills as needed. There will be times that some of those skills need to be high, but there's also times that we don't want to use a lot of skill when it comes to certain situations or people. For example, assertiveness. Sometimes I might need to be very assertive, and that'll be the most emotionally intelligent response. Other times, I don't want to be assertive because that's the most emotionally intelligent response. So it's moving. It's constantly fluid. And the goal is that I understand this skill set enough that I can call on certain skills when I need them, and I don't overuse some or underuse others. Now, ego is the one that's kind of at play here. It's EQ versus ego. And ego isn't always sort of the way we think of ego as strong arrogance or somebody who's incredibly full of themselves. What we're really thinking about or talking about when it comes to ego is, am I more self-focused than others-focused? Am I more worried about what I need to get done today and not really paying attention to the impact my behavior is having on others? Is my comfort zone more important than yours? So always we're weighing these 2 things. It's not that all ego is bad. In some cases, ego is important. We derive self-confidence from ego. If we are in a role where there's a lot of setbacks or challenges, I need to have a healthy ego or a healthy self-confidence in order to pursue and persist. But again, being aware of this dynamic between the 2 is where we're really focusing. I recognized 8 traps that leaders in particular can fall into, but I've noticed over time, of course, these can happen to any of us. So it's important to recognize what they are so that you can be aware and hopefully avoid some of these traps. The first one, trap 1, is ignoring feedback. And sometimes this isn't even ignoring feedback, it's not getting feedback that you really need to hear. So it's important that we're asking for feedback. If people are willing to give us that feedback, that we hear it, we acknowledge it, and then actually that we sort of make some changes based on that feedback, which I recognize isn't always easy. It's hard to get feedback that we don't like or don't want to believe about ourselves. But the more that we can remain open to that feedback, and like I said, it might even be subtle feedback. It might be just a look someone gives me that would tell me, I need to make an adjustment here. When it comes to ego and EQ with this trap, ego will say, focus on the positive feedback. Look how far I've come. Look how great I'm doing. But EQ remembers, this is hard work and I can never let up. Trap 2, over relying on technical skills. Maybe you're in a role where you have a lot of expertise, or maybe there's something you're really, really good at. And it's really tempting to not let that be the focus. And again, I think we've met people, we've worked with people with very high technical expertise, and they might not be as good at the people side of things, but we can justify that. Oh, they're so good at this, they're not so good at other things. Fair. But when we're focusing on our own expertise, it's important that we keep our subject matter and our people skills in balance between the two. Ego will tell you you're justified to act the way you do based on your experience, but EQ will remind you that you know better and you need to behave the way you would expect others to behave back to you. Trap 3, surrounding yourself with more of you. Now, I know a mini-me is a lot of fun. So if I'm looking for someone to work with, I want somebody compatible with me. I want someone who thinks like I do because it makes it really easy to make decisions. But as you can imagine, if I start to surround myself only with people that think like I do or have similar experience with me or tell me what I want to hear, I now can run into some trouble. So the goal is that I may have some people around me that are like me, but am I seeking out those that see things differently? Am I challenging my thinking? Am I looking for ways to avoid bias or be more objective? So focusing on a wider circle of people with a broader range of experience and opinions and thoughts is where the power is. Trap 4, not letting go of control. That strong desire a lot of us have to want things to go the way we want them to, and sometimes force ourselves into situations that maybe we shouldn't. So in this trap, I want to allow people to do their own problem solving. I want to allow them to be able to do their own critical thinking and not always be the one directing everything. Now, ego will tell you that you can never fully trust anyone, but EQ assures us that people learn by doing. And so allowing that process to happen makes all of us stronger, makes my team stronger, makes more people around me competent. Trap 5, being blind to your downstream impact. This trap occurs when I forget that my role has a ripple effect into the organization, or my behavior has consequences on others. And so really having that frame of mind that I am just one piece in this puzzle, and any move I make is going to affect all the people around me. So being able to understand not level jumping, as we say, where you're not going into the organization, avoiding traditional sort of chain of command, or not creating disruption because you have let something go quiet for a while and then suddenly come up, surface for air, and then everybody's knocked off balance. Ego will tell you, I can do what I please and it's no one's business. But EQ says, my behavior is my primary tool of influence on others, and I need to be aware of the impact I'm having on them. Trap 6, underestimating how much you're being watched. We are all noticing others. And I think, especially as leaders, we forget sometimes that people notice if we're in office, what time we arrive, what time we go home. People notice what time we send emails out. People notice what we put on social media. It is a world where a lot of us are under a microscope. And sometimes I know that feels unfair, but it is sort of the reality. And so recognizing that every move I make, even nonverbal behaviors, are being perceived and judged, and assumptions are made about my intentions. So remembering that I am a role model Ego will tell you you're special and you can do things that other people can't do. But EQ reminds us that as a leader in particular, I have a special role to play and I set the tone for others. Trap 7 is losing touch with others, losing touch if you're in a leadership role with maybe those all the way down at the front line and the challenges they have at running the business at the very basic, essential interaction level. So can I reach out? Can I make sure that I am understanding the challenges that others are dealing with? Can I not live in my own little bubble and think things are one way when in reality they're different? So reaching out to others, spending time with others that are doing totally different work than you or work that you're asking people to do, go out and see how easy is it for them to really do it. Ego will question, why can't I've earned this, right? I've earned the big office. I've earned the upgrade on travel. But EQ reminds us that we're all equals when it comes to human experience and setting a nice, humble role model. EQ reminds us that setting a humble perception is much more powerful. Trap 8, relapsing back to your old ways. So this is improving for a while, focusing on high EQ behaviors, and then slowly drifting back to high ego behaviors or letting those high ego behaviors take over when you're having a bad day. So the importance of consistency and credibility coming from that consistency, or at least effort. When people see us really trying to use our EQ, when we do have those bad days, they give us a pass. They understand everyone's human. So ego will question, why can't they just accept me the way I am? But EQ will ask, what do I really gain by staying comfortable? There are certainly challenges to all of us using our EQ, and I have found that not all of these traps are going to be an issue for everybody. You might just have one or two that are just constantly nagging at you, the ones that you might fall into the most. So think about for you, out of these 8, which ones might be the most challenging and focus in on those. This is an ongoing journey. Emotional intelligence isn't something we just learn and then that's it. We're good. Check that off the list. This is something that we're all continually working toward and developing throughout our lifetimes. So this wraps up our Ego Trap series. In future episodes, we will be exploring the application of EQ in daily interactions. So if you want some anonymous help with a challenging situation, just email me at podcasts, plural, at jenshirkani.com, and I'll be happy to share some ideas and things you can do to improve the situation. The email is also in our show notes. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks for joining us today on the Ego versus EQ and You podcast. If you liked this episode, be sure to follow us or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, and please share our show with others. For questions or future topic suggestions, please email us at podcast@jenshirkani.com. Until next time, keep using your EQ and show ego who's boss.